This is our e-referenda for Pates Grammar School on whether the UK should leave or remain in the European Union. I'm Flora and I'm going to be representing to leave the European Union.
And I'm Izzy and I'm going to be representing why we should stay in the European Union. The In campaigners say that UK citizens can save up to £450 a year by remaining in the EU. As well as this, we get multiple things cheaper by our EU membership, for example flights and also mobile phone charges. Lastly, all goods that we get from Europe meet European quality standards if we remain in the EU.
I feel that some of your figures may be wrong, but the out campaigners say that EU red tape makes goods and services more expensive. A really good example of this is the tampon tax, where we saw earlier this year that EU legislation was so tight over our UK legislation that we couldn't change it.
The In campaigners say that policing and security will remain stronger if we stay in the EU. This is because we have no open borders due to the Schengen Agreement that we opted out of. Secondly, we actually pool information using Europol intelligence, which means we gain a better understanding of criminality across the EU. Finally, the European arrest warrant allows us to deport criminals and import them to ensure they face justice in the UK.
However, it's far more difficult to remove terrorists from the UK when we are in the EU. There's so many restrictions over us. A really good example of this is Abu Hamza. Another point is we can work together with other countries even though we're not in the EU, because America does this and it'd be really helpful. Nigel Farage says that 75% of UK laws are made in Brussels. Other member states can force through decisions against the UK wishes. And the British government has repeatedly been defeated in cases brought to the European Courts of Human Rights Justice. Leaving the EU is the only way to regain full sovereignty. The out campaigners say that it's impossible to control immigration as a member of the EU. Public services are put under strain because of the amount of migrants, and high immigration drives down wages.
However, In campaigners say that immigrants in the EU actually pay more into the economy than they take out. Cameron's EU deals mean that we can limit the amount of in-work benefits that migrants receive for up to 4 years. In addition, although some are reluctant to accept free movement, we would still have to do this to gain access to the single market if we left the EU anyway. Finally, others point out that immigration is actually good for the UK economy. That actually only a minority of laws may be made in the EU. In addition, the UK has a veto on laws in many important areas. Finally, Cameron's EU deal allows us to block the laws within our Westminster Parliament. The final point is that sharing sovereignty to the EU or to anywhere else is important for free trade. The In campaign say that in terms of travel, it will be better to remain in the European Union. This is because flights to Europe and using mobile abroad is actually a lot cheaper due to our EU membership. Secondly, British tourists enjoy free or severely discounted healthcare in other EU countries. And finally, there is no guarantee that expats in the EU will be able to stay if we remove ourselves from the EU.
Thankfully, there is no reason that leaving the EU would make it harder for Britons to go on holiday, which is really good news. Also, international law means that current expats could not be forced to return to the UK, which means that people living abroad don't have to move back. Lastly, the UK has deals with lots of other countries to help Britons living abroad, so that's not going to be restricted as to where we can live.